gentlemen, live from North Hollywood, it's the Nighttime Show with your host, Stephen Kramer Glickman. I'm the voice of the Nighttime Show, Mike Black. We also have with us our head writer, Matt Walker, and the host himself, Stephen Kramer Glickman. But first, a television legend, star of Babylon 5, Land of the Lost, and Chekov on the original Star Trek. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Koenig. And now, the host of the Nighttime Show, a man who takes at least 3 dumps to get into the transporter, Mr. Stephen Kramer Glickman.
It is true, I don't fit into a regular transporter. How's everybody doing? You guys good, boys?
Very
great.
good.
We've had a very successful week. This has been a big week for us. We just did the Nighttime Show live at the Hollywood Improv with Tom Green and some wonderful people, and it was completely sold out, super fun. Darth Vader was here, but today we're not talking about Star Wars. We're talking about Star Trek, and we have Walter Koenig here, and we're in your home, in your office, which is amazing. It's everything I could ever have would ever want it to be, and so much more.
This is your dream office.
This is my dream office. I mean, we're surrounded by. Let's just give the people a little idea of what we're looking at around us. So. To our left, we have what are these? These are figurines from all sorts of different.
Maybe let the guy who collected.
Yeah, please,
them
Walter. Walter, will you tell the people like a little bit about what's around us?
The guy who actually knows what these things are.
Yeah, please.
Well, you know, I grew up in the '40s, and the first thing I collected, most of my collection, 90% of my collection has to do with comic strip character stuff, or comic book character stuff, or superhero stuff. And when I was 7 or 8 years old, Kellogg's cereal had a particularly bad tasting cereal called Pep. The worst cereals had the best premiums because there was no way they could sell the cereal otherwise. So they had little pinback buttons inside the bottom of the box. And I would go into the supermarket and surreptitiously open the bottom of the box and withdraw the pinback button. And,
so you were a thief as a child.
Yes, absolutely. And I took great pride in my success until I got caught. And then they took me to the storage room where they hung up all the beef and the pork, and they said they were going to hang me on one of these things and keep me there until the police arrived. I was about 10 at the time. And
where was this?
This is in New York City.
That makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Where else would it be? And so they finally released me into the custody of my brother, who was 6 years older, who was also there, who initially denied knowing me. But then I started a contest with my friends to see who could steal the most pinback buttons for me, and and I rewarded them with a very vigorous handshake or something. And then from there, went on and I collected Big Little books, which were precursors to comic books, and they were these little cardboard, 3 by 4 inches tall, and you could get those at a 5 and dime at Woolworths.
Oh,
and I
gorgeously displayed.
I never got to steal any of those. I had to pay for them, but they were only a dime, so it was okay. So, but all that stuff went out. When I graduated high school and went off to college, my mother threw them all down the incinerator. Oh. So in 1967, I began again, and my wife actually bought me the first Big Little book. And I've been recollecting since 1960. So I have hundreds and hundreds of figurines. Some of them date back to the late 20s and early 30s. Bisque comic strip characters that were produced in Germany. They were absolutely terrific. The detail is wonderful. And then some wood composition figures called Sirocco figures, and some tin wind-up toys, and the buttons. The buttons were the primary collectible for a long time. I have, I don't know. I haven't counted them. I have them in a big 3x4 plexiglass case, and there's about 12 or 13 or 1,400.
And the characters go back to the pulp era.
Characters actually go back to 1896 to the Yellow Kid. There's a set of Yellow Kid pinbacks.
Oh my
and
God.
then when I had this second floor built on, we built on these cabinets, and that's where I have a lot of this stuff. So that's what it's about. It's about comic strip character stuff, and even dabbled a little bit in the superheroes, mainly Golden Age. I made some concession to Silver Age, DC. What I have not collected with enthusiasm are the Marvel stuff. I don't have a great affinity for that because it's just beyond my time.
Sure.
I go back to the old guys.
Wow. Yeah. It's incredible.
So you heard it here first. DC's better than Marvel, according to Walter Koenig.
Absolutely. 100%.
Debate settled, nerds. There you go.
A little known fact that you might know it doesn't have to do with DC or Marvel, but the fact that Dan Reed, who was the Lone Ranger's nephew, was the great uncle
I know this.
the Green Hornet.
Yeah, that's a great fact. I was always kind of hoping they would do a movie incorporating both characters, with like one that took place during Lone Ranger era and another that like wrapped up a case in the Green Hornet era or something.
Well, they did actually. They
Did
make
they
a movie.
really?
They couldn't release it because it turned out to be a movie that involved pedophiles.
Oh God!
The Green Hornet had another side to him.
Wow.
Guys, if you don't
It's a very
stop me,
different
I'll go
side.
on.
No,
Continue
please.
doing
Wow.
this.
No
one knew this. This is news.
No, because I'm making it up on the spot.
You had me so hooked.
Wow.
in.
I was like,
I can't believe they made this movie. I was like, was this the 40s? When did this happen?
It's like Roman Polanski directed a Green Hornet.
I was like, in the 60s, they did a lot of experimental stuff. Maybe that's when this happened.
you never know.
I was so ready to start Googling about where do I find this movie?
when you find this bizarre Green
Well, of course,
Hornet pedophile
I remember
movie.
the Lone Ranger and Green Hornet from the radio. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to listen to the radio and all those shows.
Oh, yeah, The Shadow and
Oh, yeah.
all those,
Yeah.
yeah.
The first one in the afternoon was Superman. That came on after the soap opera Lorenzo Jones and his wife Belle, and that was from 4:30 to 4:45, and Superman was from 4:45 to 5 o'clock.
See, now I don't know if you've made up Lorenzo Jones and his wife.
No, that was true. No, Helen Trent and Argyle Sunday. My life was really about the radio in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get your start in radio? Did you get your start that way, or did you get your start in acting?
No, I was too young to get my start in radio. Now the first professional acting job I did, and it's in my autobiography, was I was in drama school in New York, neighborhood playhouse, and in my class were James Kahn, Dabney Coleman, Chris Lloyd, Jessica Walter, Brenda Vaccaro, and Elizabeth Ashley.
Wow.
All became movie stars.
Yeah, right.
I placed a poor seventh in that class, but we only had like 60 students, so it was pretty good
Yeah,
proportion.
those are good odds for
Well, I was broke, and I was literally living on $75 a month, and I was subleasing an apartment, and I shared it with another actor, and we paid $29 a month for the apartment, and the rest was bus fare and canned salmon and canned tuna, and that's what we lived on while we were going to drama school. And then I had a job as an orderly at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, and learned that I could indeed put thermometers into living, breathing people and withdraw them from corpses.
Wow.
It was an extraordinary experience in terms of I had just assumed that my limitations in dealing with life and death matters was very, very limited. I didn't know that I could adjust and sort of turn off, and because you had to, you just couldn't live with that stuff. Anyway, that's all beside the point. My point is my first acting job was I was graduating from drama school, and I had no money, and I was anticipating returning to the West Coast because I finished at UCLA. I finished college at UCLA, and I needed to make some money. And I had a friend who worked construction, a kid that I had known from when we were 6 years old in New York, and he worked construction. I said, what's the possibility of one of those rivets falling from the building and hitting somebody? And he said it could happen. It could absolutely happen. We had to be careful about that. So I worked it out. I worked it out that he gave me one of those rivets, those 8-pound rivets. And the reason why I brought up Jimmy and Chris and Dabney is because I asked them to be my eyewitness when I was going to have this accident. And Jimmy thought it was a great idea, but he wouldn't have any part of it. Dabney preached to me about, how serious this was and that I could get arrested. Chris thought it was hysterical, but he wouldn't help me either. So I got a guy who was in the grade in the class below me. It was a 2-year school, whose name was Hugh, and he ended up being a beat poet named Wavy Gravy.
I've heard that name.
Yes,
of course.
And he thought it was cool. He introduced me to marijuana, by the way, which wasn't a very successful introduction. I couldn't sustain an interest in it. But he said he would be my eyewitness, so he would see this happen. So I stepped off the curb and 6th Avenue, having gone into the bar next door, cut my cheek with a razor blade, held a newspaper up to my face so you couldn't see the blood, and had the rivet under my arm. And the whole point was that Hugh was supposed to walk behind me and see me walk into the street and get hit by this thing falling from the building. Well, he panicked. You see, this cool beat poet panicked.
Oh my God.
And he walked in front of me and he didn't see it happen. He just panicked. So I had to scream, "Hey!" And then I fell to the ground, and the rivet fell to the ground, and the blood was pouring out of my face. And went to the hospital. My brother was working as an intern or as a resident at a hospital in the Bronx. And so I got the insurance company to give me some money. And
Oh my God.
Wow.
yeah.
What's the statute of limitations on insurance fraud?
As a result of that, I bought a terrible car, an Anglia, an English Ford, which cost me as much money in the 6 months that I had it as I got from the insurance.
Oh my God.
So you got your comeuppance if the insurance company is still mad about it.
For all of your Bible beater listeners out there, I was punished for my act. But if you consider that it was
We have a very religious fan base. So.
I'm sure you can tell.
If you consider that it was U.S. Steel who paid me for it, I have no conscience about it.
Yeah, no way.
But yes, it was street theater, and I got paid for it. That was my first job.
I love it.
And when did you come back to Los Angeles?
Well, I came back as soon as I had
As soon as you had the money. Yeah.
Well, actually, this story, and I'll make it as short as I can. This story is the baptism of fire that actors will go through at some juncture in their life. While I was at the Playhouse, Sidney Pollack, the director, was my teacher.
Yeah.
And the 2 days, literally 2 days after I graduated, I got a telegram from a theatrical agency in New York called Schwartz Luskin, saying they had an audition for me for a movie that John Frankenheimer was directing. And I thought it was a telegram because I didn't have a phone. And so I thought, this is amazing. Well, I went there and I found out that it was Sid Pollack who had recommended me for this. And it was a movie with Shelley Winters and Burt Lancaster about hoodlums. And I had done up something at the neighborhood Playhouse, a showcase, in which I could see where he thought that I might be right for this film. Well, he wanted me for film. Frankenheimer said, okay. And then we're going to shoot it in New York. And Sid asked me that I should call him every other day to let him know that I was still around and that he would let me know when the start date was. Well, after about 2 weeks of waiting, he answered one of my calls and said that they decided they were going to shoot it in L.A. instead of New York. And if I could get out there, I would still be in the movie. And I thought, okay. I was intending to go back to L.A. anyway. So I got back there, and this is the baptism of fire part. He had me calling him every other day. In the meantime, somehow somebody recommended me for a play, Rainmaker. And it was a part that Earl Holliman, if you know film at all, you might know Earl Holliman played in the movie with Katharine Hepburn and Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
Sure.
Later on. But anyway, and I said, well, do you think I'm right for this? And then this guy he eats he eats a dozen eggs for breakfast and a stack of pancakes. And I don't think physically that I'm right for the role. He said, no, we'll get short actors to play the opposite. So the day came, I was supposed to go to my first rehearsal for The Rainmaker, and I thought, well, I would call Sid just before I went and see how we were coming with the idea of my being in the movie. And he said, oh, Walt, gee, I was going to call you. We can't use you in the movie. And I said, why? And he said, well, I can't cast extras. Extras? When was it decided that I was going to be an extra? I thought I was going to have a speaking role, being this character called Big Dom, who was a little guy who was the head of the gang. So I left my house reeling. Actually, it was my mother's house. I was living with her at the time. I left it reeling from the fact that I wasn't going to be in the movie. I got the rehearsal, and everybody's already sitting around the table rehearsing. And I went to the director and I said, what's going on? Am I late? He says, oh, no, gee, I meant to call you. I had to recast the role. So within an hour of each other, I lost two parts. I lost the movie and I lost the play.
My God.
I left there thinking, well, if I'm still want to be an actor tomorrow, then I know I'm fated to be an actor. Because right then I was devastated. I mean, I just couldn't believe this has happened. But indeed, that's exactly what happened. And in the course of 24 hours, I said, screw it, I'm still an actor. And struggle along.
Now, on your IMDb, your first credit on IMDb is the Norman Vincent Peale story. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
What was that? That and Combat, the TV series.
Okay. Well, Norman Vincent Peale was the first feature I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Norman Vincent Peale was a famous preacher, was a famous minister. And Don Murray, the actor, I think his name was Don Murray, was a very well-known actor at the time. Played a minister, and I played God. And I had the long robes and the beard, and no, that's not true.
I was like, you've been demoted every part since. You start off as God. And you can't.
I played a parishioner, and I come out of church, and I say, it was a wonderful sermon, Mr. Peale, and that was my part.
I love it. I love it.
Well, our Bible-beating audience is going to be thrilled about this, too.
And then you went on to... You went on to guest star in a bunch of television shows, like you did Alfred Hitchcock Presents or the Hitchcock Hour, or whatever. Later on.
Do you do that a lot? Do you ever do that? Like, do you do that often? Where you say, like, someone goes, "Oh, were you on this show?" You go, "Yeah, I played this," and you just make something up.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
I sometimes because I used to be on.
He's
this,
done it twice already.
I know. I used to be on this Nickelodeon show called Big Time Rush, and sometimes people will come up to me and they'll go, "Hey, do I know you from this?" And I'll go, yeah, I was on a gold rush show on Discovery Channel where we dig for gold in the mountains, and I got a horrible contagious disease from it, and it's really nice to meet you. And I'll go to touch them, and they'll go, it's not at all who I thought you were, but it's really fun. That's it. I
do it all the time.
No, it's the best. Yeah. You're the best,
and I just love the reaction. The mouths drop, and the eyes go wide.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, right.
I can't believe that you did that.
But in the Combat thing, the interesting thing about the Combat, it was directed by Robert Altman.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, long before he had gotten into films.
Did he do a lot of episodes or just the one you were in?
No, I think he did a lot of episodes.
Okay.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know that Robert Redford... Oh, no, Robert Redford was in an episode of The Untouchables that I did. We never met. But Robert Altman was the director of the Combat, and it was, again, a very small part. I played somebody who was a sentry on duty and very nervous. And I said to him, I didn't know who he was, but I'd come from drama school where we were always encouraged to experiment and be creative. And I said to him, although the part didn't call for it, I said, do you mind if I added a stutter to the character? And he said, no, do what you want, which was sort of an indication of the kind of director he was going to be, because he did a lot of improvisation with his actors and so on. So I added the stutter that probably went on too long, but he let me do it. So those are the things that I did very, very early, and The Untouchables, which was a big show at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
Robert
again was a very small part.
Yeah. And then was The Lieutenant like your first big breakout role where you had something recurring, or?
No, I did 3 episodes in the course of 2 years on a series called Mr. Novak, and it was a very highly acclaimed series. Would received a lot of awards because it dealt with high schools, and James Franciscus and Dean Jagger were the leads. And God, I don't know if you guys know, even though these names resonate at all, but they were important
Burgess
actors.
Meredith was on it as well.
Burgess Meredith?
Yep.
Well, he took over for Dean Jagger.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But that's an interesting story because it gives you an indication of how capricious this business is, how extraordinarily capricious it is, and how you can go a whole lifetime being a brilliant actor working in little theater and never really achieving anything, and then by stroke of luck, circumstances, whatever, your life changes, and you develop a career that sustains you for 50 years. I was a friend of mine named Joe D'Augusta was a casting director. He brought me in from the first Mr. Novak show. It was a part of a Russian student, a defecting Russian student, and I read for the director. And the part was a very uptight kid. In the Soviet Union, we do not do this. We do not have people talk in class. You have to be called on. And what is it with you? And one of the lines was, I can't remember. It was the line that I remembered for years about Americans. And anyway, I read, and the director really liked it. He said, "God, that's good. That's right on what I'm looking for." And that was on a Monday. Well, it turned out that they didn't have a finished script. So he decided to continue to look at actors. And they looked at actors on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then he got a guy came in, and I know his name, but I'm not going to repeat it, who was a Greek actor, actually from Greece. And he came in, and he read it very flamboyantly. And flamboyantly is a euphemism.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
Right.
a la George Takei.
Well, but George was always very...
Not then yet.
Very, he played everything very straight in those days. In any case, and he was all over the place. And my friend Joe said, they want you back, but this kid had played this part this way, and he's probably going to ask you to do that. And I said, oh. And I went in, and sure enough, I played it the way I had done it. And he says, well, can you do this? And can you kind of run around the room and bang into the wall? And if I had thought that the director had come up with this idea, I would have tried it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's my job as an actor.
Yeah.
But knowing that they wanted me to replicate what another actor had done,
Yeah.
I felt offended by it. And I felt that it would be prostituting. I really would be prostituting my craft. And I said, no, I can't do that. He says, well, if you don't do it, I can't consider you for the role. And I said, well, que sera. And he said, well, nice seeing you. And I left, and he cast the other kid. And the weekend went by, and then I called Joe, and I said, from what you told me, I don't know how this kid could play this role. I would love to come in and see him work. Because one of the lines was, not Chekov, but whatever Alexei said was, you people live in a world of dreams, you Americans. And I'm thinking, how do you do that line and bounce off the walls?
Yeah.
Right.
So Joe said, oh, you didn't hear? And I said, hear what? Well, Dean Jagger became ill, and they postponed that episode because he had a big part in it. 6 weeks later, Dean Jagger is okay. New director, Michael O'Herlihy. Joe calls me back in. I read one line. He says, you're cast. 3 years after that, Joe D'Augusta casts me as Chekov in Star Trek.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Wow.
how amazing this life is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's like if one of those little things hadn't happened, That is amazing.
Yeah, it could have gone. That could have gone so many different ways.
Chekov could have been very flamboyant. That could have been an entire.
Well, as a matter of fact, and that's another quick story. I guess you don't mind if I
please do.
Around.
Yeah, of course. Come on.
They gave me the pages for Chekov, and again, it was a very serious situation. Captain, the ship is about to blow up. What are we going to do? And a young ensign. And so I went in thinking, well, this is a very serious guy. And so my teeth were clenched. My brow was furrowed. My eyes were steely, but with some trepidation, crossing my face. Obviously I've told this story before, but I'm so glib about it. Anyway, so I read it that way. And there was about 6 people in the room, including Joe Pevney, who I worked for on the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, and Gene Roddenberry and Joe D'Augusta. And that the room there was dead silence. I thought, well, I really have them awestruck. I had them not being able to find the words to say how brilliant I was. And in fact, what they really were thinking was, this is what they didn't have this in mind at all. And they said to me, well, can you make it funny? Now, the difference between this and the Novak was this was coming from the producer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were looking for something for the character. And so I said, okay. And my reading was, Captain, guess what? The ship is about to blow up. My hand to God, that's what got me to go.
Oh, my God.
Now, I've also read, and you can dispel or confirm this rumor, that your similarity in looks to Davy Jones helped you get the role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. They were looking for it was a demographic. They were looking for somebody who would appeal to the same group of fans. And that was like the 8 to 12-year-olds. And when my mail started coming in, it was indeed on in pencil and on lined paper. And it was all about how groovy I was. And how groovy my hair was, which for the first 6 shows was a woman's wig.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Is that true? Really?
Yeah, my hair was short. And so I spent after we took the wig off, my hair grew out. Well, I had already started to lose it. I was thin on the back. So we started to comb it forward and spray it with Nestle's Streaks and Tips, which covered up the bald spot.
And was delicious.
Right. So when I started making the movies, I got a hairpiece. But then it was,
Hey, man, this is a lot of fun. Are you having a good time there, Matt Walker?
I'm having a great time.
Man, oh man, do I love recording episodes of the Nighttime Show podcast. But you know what I love doing even more than that?
What do you love more than that?
Popping open a bottle of Fireball whiskey, which I happen to have with me right here.
That is a bottle of Fireball.
It is. It's a big bottle. It says Fireball whiskey, and it is yummy, yums, cinnamon flavor. I'm actually, I don't know if you can hear it, but if I hold up the bottle, you can hear the bottle talk. Hang on.
You can't hear a bottle talk.
Wait, shh. Just listen real quiet.
Oh, what's happening, everybody? How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, there's my bottle of Fireball whiskey.
That bottle's talking. That's
a
crazy.
real bottle that can talk.
That's amazing.
What's happening, Matt? You said you were having a good time, right?
I am having a good time.
You want to have a great time?
Yeah, you want to have a great time? You got to we're going to pop this bottle up, and I'm going to put you in my mouth.
Yeah.
You ready for that?
Oh, I've been ready my whole bottle life.
Oh, I want you so deep down my throat. Here we go. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it all.
Give it to me, baby.
I'm opening it.
Oh, can you smell that?
Whoa, you swallowed that whole bottle of Fireball. That's amazing.
Well, it was a lot of Fireball, and it's down in my belly. Are you down there?
Steven, this is a blast, man. Thanks for swallowing me.
Hey, how's it going in my stomach? How is it down there?
Oh, it's really great. Hey, did you go to In-N-Out?
I did.
Oh, man, lucky me.
Yeah, you bet. Enjoy some of that, buddy. Those are for y'all.
This is great, man. Let's get
y'all.
loose.
Let's get loose. Let's have a good time. I'm going to shake my belly around.
Wait, whoa.
Hey, you see a TV guide in there?
Yeah. Whoa, yeah, actually I do. One of the, it's
swallow
dog
a
ear.
TV guide.
There's a TV and a TV in there. Turn around, you can see it on the wall.
Cool.
It's Sanyos, I believe. A Sanyos Fireball. What do you see on the TV?
Oh my gosh, lucky me. What?
Is this
Get out.
Is it?
Are you-
Is it an old episode of Quantum Leap?
Yeah, whoa, is he ever gonna get back?
I don't know. I don't know, but enjoy that, buddy. And thanks for being in my stomach. Fireball Whiskey. It's a party in your stomach and a party in your heart. Fireball Whiskey.
Bye.
All right, let's get back to the show.
Now, part of the reason that Chekov was brought in, this is the story I've always heard, is that because George was off working on the Green Berets, he wasn't going to be there for the first 6 episodes of season 2.
Right.
They need somebody to fill in.
Right.
And that's part of what led to you. And then he comes back after 6 weeks, and apparently you two were forced to share a dressing room, and he was not happy about that. Is that true?
Well, yeah, that's true. I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know that he was not happy about it. Yeah. And it makes me a little uncomfortable because I never, on the one hand, I have a considerable respect for his professionalism because he got the short end on a lot of occasions.
Oh, yeah.
I did get to do those parts, and a lot of them had been written in advance for George, and the first 6-7 weeks, and they got a chance to see me and to see me work, and liked what I had done, and well, it was still a couple of months before we went on the air, but those were in the can, and the fans that we were aiming at responded favorably. But George never indicated to me that he was upset about this. I was just grateful to have a role that they kept calling me back for, because I was told that it might recur. I didn't have a contract, that it might recur. And that each week when they were passing out the scripts for the next show at the end of the week, and I'd look and Chekov was still there. I said, well, this is great.
Some red shirt got it instead.
We didn't know about red shirts.
Yeah. As far as first impressions, like first day of work, do you remember that for like the first day that you were there?
Had you been watching the show before that?
No, I had not been watching the show. I had flipped channels and saw the styrofoam rocks and said, "Forget about it.
Hilarious.
I'm not going to watch this." I wasn't that involved in the world of science fiction to begin with.
No, of course.
I mean, I read Bradbury. I read The Illustrated Man, and I loved it as a kid, Ray Bradbury. But I wasn't that fond at that point. I wasn't that fond of science fiction.
Well, science fiction on television up to that point had not. I mean, there was a little here and a little there, but nothing.
I loved
as
Twilight
impactful.
Zone. I thought Twilight Zone was brilliant. But that wasn't really science fiction.
I mean, they had their occasional aliens, but nothing in comparison to
It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook.
But like first day, as far as like we can just kind of walk through it a little bit. Gene Roddenberry. What was your first impression, or what was that like?
Congenial. We didn't see him that often. He'd come down maybe once a week, and sit around for an hour or so and be friendly.
Would he give notes on set?
No.
So he would leave it to them to do.
Well, the directors never gave notes. In fact, my first season we had 2 directors, Mark Daniels and Joe Pevney. Joe Pevney, I had done I'd done a lead on the Alfred Hitchcock Hour for, and he had cast me in that. I played a hoodlum, a leader of a gang, which the script had been written by Harlan Ellison.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Harlan.
Who wrote City on the Edge of Forever.
Oh my
right.
God, amazing.
And we've had a very rocky relationship for 35 years, or 40 years. Very volatile relationship.
Yeah.
Because he is very difficult.
Yes. I think everyone has had a volatile relationship that has a relationship with him. I think that's how everyone would describe it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had so much respect for his intellect and for his creativity that I took a lot of shit that I shouldn't have. But I think we finally reconciled after all this time. He's not terribly well at this point, and I went to see him a few weeks ago, and we had a good time. In any case, Gene Roddenberry was fine. The 2 directors, directors on television are basically traffic cops. They block the show. They may talk to the guest actors about something, but they pretty much feel but they pretty much feel that it's not really their province to coach the regulars.
Okay.
Right.
So I mean, they figure you're on the show, you've been cast, leave you alone.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Was Lucille Ball ever on set?
No, she didn't come around.
Okay.
No, I saw her on the lot a couple of
yeah.
times.
Yeah, because you guys were at Paramount.
Yeah, we were right next door to Mission Impossible
Yeah.
when we started.
Amazing.
Wow.
Did you guys ever, like, have lunch in the same area or anything like that?
Well, we ate in the cafeteria. We used to sit. We had this was later. We made the first movie. It was an actor named Franklin, and I can't think of his last name, who had like a 6-week contract on our film.
Mm-hmm.
But he had gone to Juilliard with Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And so Robin Williams was doing Mork.
Right.
Hindi.
Yeah, on 28.
And so he came over. It's amazing, gentlemen, how much I'm remembering on such little notice, because my mind goes up all the time. So you should feel complimented that I'm so relaxed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
That I remember. And so Robin Williams came back and sat with us every day,
Oh.
which was trying. Was really
Saps all your energy. I imagine. Yeah.
he was the absolute quintessential classic example of an actor, a comic actor who's never off.
Yeah.
He's always on. Always on. Funny. It's getting a little tired. But he knew Franklin, and so he was there every day.
I have to tell you, my dad is going to love hearing that, because I remember him vividly pointing at the TV once going, that guy's never off. He's like, mark my words, that man is never off.
Always that way.
Oh, my God. That's so funny.
Yeah.
All right.
So when you got on set, then what did you think of your fellow actors like Shatner and Nimoy and?
Oh, well, yeah, let's go. I mean, we talked about Takai a little bit.
Takei.
Why? What is
What's
with
with your
my
names
accent?
today?
No, everybody says that. And if
Yeah?
you're just thinking Takei.
Takei.
Yeah.
Takei.
Takei Nick. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he has shirts that say "It's okay to be Takei." He sold those
Yeah. Oh,
when
yeah.
he came out. Yeah.
I do have a story. You guys, you allow profanity. I'm
Go
sure.
nuts.
Yeah.
Go
So I was always being called George when I was doing the series. It really pissed me off.
Really?
All the time. He wasn't being called Walter, but I was being called George. So I was doing a convention. It was in the late 70s, I think, early 80s. I was doing a convention in New York, you know. Actually, it was out near where the Met Stadium is.
Okay.
And it was a huge crowd waiting to get into the tent where we were all sitting. And I had to go to the John, so I got up from my seat, and I walked by all these people waiting to get in. And this guy says, "Oh, hey, George, could you give me an autograph now so I don't have to stand in line?" And I had already heard this, a freaking 1,000 times. So I guess I rolled my eyes. Oh, God, another one. And I said, "Look, I'm going to John. I'll come back and I'll sign." So I came back. I sat down, and the line started to come in, and he came in with a wad of bills. He must have had several $100s worth of bills, and he put them out, extended them out towards me, and said, and he said, "This is what I was going to spend on your table, you fucking little shit." And then he walked away.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
And to this day, George Takei is getting hate mail and has no idea why.
Takei.
Takei, see
now
what
you
you
caught
did?
it. You caught it
I
from me.
caught it from you.
I'm the worst.
So how did I feel about the actors on Star Trek? I had good. I was so grateful to be there. I mean, had a weekly paycheck. Or daily, because I wasn't on the contract. If I worked a day, I got paid a day's work. Nichelle was immediately very friendly. She was a darling. Everybody else dealt with me very professionally. Shatner sort of, was polite, said hello. I once said to him, I remember seeing you on We the People, which was a series he was on before that. I said, and I thought you really had as a kid, I saw this. And he said to me, "How old are you?" He thought I was making a reference to that he was so much older than I was or something. It wasn't true. He was like 5.5 years older than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw him without his piece. So he
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he definitely looked 5.5 years old. In any case, so they were all very nice. Actually, Bill, in those days, was very funny. He was, brought a lot of humor to the set. I knew that I heard that there was stuff going on behind the scenes, but I wasn't exposed to it. Bill, when he felt that he didn't have enough lines, he went to Harlan's house and told him, could you build up my part a little bit, that kind of thing. But Leonard was not there. Mr. Spock was there, and that was okay. I understood that very early. That I would be dealing. I mean, and literally, he was there all the time. Off camera, it was Mr. Spock. And I had actually met Leonard. I had auditioned for him and Vic Morrow for a film they did called No Exit, I think. See, I'm remembering all this stuff, which is amazing. I don't remember this stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, No Exit, the play, right?
Yeah, it was a play.
It was turned into a film.
And they had me reading for like 45 minutes, but I didn't get it. In any case, so Leonard was Mr. Spock. Was Mr. Spock in all the movies, but I respected him because I knew that he was a good person. That he was socially conscious, that he had a political point of view that I sympathized with, that I empathized with, and I was amazed at his dedication to his craft and the way he went about it. How conscientious he was about being Mr. Spock. So DeForest was great. I loved DeForest. We used to get on the phone to each other and talk about rumors we had heard. Jimmy was cantankerous, but still a very warm and generous person. And Bill was fun. He only became such a pain in the ass when we started doing the movies. Yeah. And that was because,
I blame T.J. Hooker. That's what did it.
Well, I've heard stories about him on T.J. Hooker that he wasn't a good guy there. So it didn't originate with Star Trek. But the thing that I objected to, because in fact, I did this show Raw Nerve. And I told him how I felt about how he dealt with us. And I said, and the thing that upset us was that you would change the blocking so that when we were on the set, so that it would feature you and put us in the background. So he says, so you were upset with the writing that you guys weren't featured. I said, no, not with the writing. I had accepted the fact that we were secondary characters. That you three were the principals, and that the movies were made on the basis of your involvement. I said it wasn't the writing; it was the fact that after it was all established, and there was a close-up of one of us, you talked to the director, and it was reversed and it was changed so that you were the focus of attention. Yeah. But I mean, that was to be expected, but not for every bloody shot.
Sure.
And I told him that, and he wasn't terribly happy to hear that, and he denied it. And I said, Bill, we remember when Nick Meyer would be directing, and he'd set up the shot, and he says, "Okay, set the cameras, get the lighting going," and then you'd go, Nick. And you take him aside, and we'd look at each other, and we'd roll our eyes because we knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And it was changed. Oh, wow. So that's what we objected to, and it was the source of most of the problems that we had, was that he didn't respect us at all. Didn't respect us. We were the movable furniture, and that was about it.
Wow. Yeah.
I had a very weird interaction with him.
No.
What? At
this is the best story.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite.
At Paramount, we shot our TV show on stage 27 and 28, which is where they shot a lot of they shot some Star Trek movies on those stages, and some of Next Generation. And I saw William Shatner sitting across the hall, by I think it was by stage 30. He was sitting on a golf cart talking to somebody, and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. I have this really bizarre connection to Star Trek because my grandmother's brother was the guy who created the insurance clause to insure people's body parts. Like, that's a weird thing.
Insure people's what?
Body parts. So, like, Fred Astaire had his legs insured. That
okay.
was through my grandmother's brother. And Gene Roddenberry had his mind insured.
Is that right?
That's 100% true. So that if he was in a car accident and his head was, damaged or something, he would get paid out millions of dollars or whatever. So, I mean, it was Liberace's hands.
Marilyn Monroe's breasts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was a lot of people that had this done. Yeah. And he was the guy who was insuring all these people for these.
For those, he had to examine the parts first.
Yes, he did. He really did. But very specifically and weirdly, I was like, I have a good opening line. I'll go talk to William Shatner and tell him how I'm connected to him. And so I go over and I go, Mr. Shatner, and this is in front of our crew. Like, our crew watched me do this. And I go, Mr. Shatner, it's such an honor to meet you. Hey, my grandmother's brother did the insurance. And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I go, on Gene Roddenberry's brain or whatever." And you just watch Shatner's face just sink, just like, "What are you talking about?" And I go, when we shoot our TV show on your soundstage, hey, would it be possible we could take a picture? I'm a big fan. And he goes, "No, meeting me is enough." And everyone on our show heard him say, "Meeting me's enough." So for years after that, when I'd go and take a picture, so I go, "Hey, let's take a picture together," they would just say, "Oh no, meeting me's enough." For like years, it was like a thing. And then, my mom is part of the Equestrian Center in Burbank,
right?
And so we went to a big fundraiser together, her and me and Jimmy Kimmel's family and all these people. We're all there, and who's the host of the event? William Shatner. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got this funny story that happened. And I'm telling everyone, the Kimmel people, I'm telling all these people at the table. Everyone's laughing. It's a funny story. And then afterwards, my mom goes, "Well, I really want to meet him. Maybe if he's outside, we'll go say hi." And we walk outside after into the Equestrian Center, which is all horses and stuff. And there's William Shatner sitting in his car. Car's running, and he's just texting on his phone with the window rolled down. And I go, "Let's go over and say hi." And so me and my mom walk up. My mom's like 65 years old. We walk over, and I go, "Excuse me, Mr. Shatner." And he goes, "Uh-huh." And I go, my mom and I were just at the event. We met before at Paramount, actually. And my mom just wanted to say a quick thing to you. And he goes, "Okay." And my mom goes, "Mr. Shatner, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate all the work that you do." And as she's saying this, he goes, "Great," takes his foot off the brake and drives away while she's still talking. It was the greatest. But it was like one of those interactions, because here's the thing is, I got to work with Leonard Nimoy in San Diego at the Jewish Community Center in La Jolla. I worked backstage on some show that he'd done. And he was very nice. We talked. He gave me a copy of his book, but that was the end of the story. Right. The Shatner story, it stayed with me for my whole life. See,
what you didn't know when you began that story was that the only person I despise more than Bill Shatner is Jimmy Kimmel. What? Absolutely. And I'll tell you very briefly, and I hope this stays in your podcast.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay. I'd love it.
I got a call from his show, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd love you to come down to the show tonight and do a skit. We have a skit, and I said, "It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't have enough notice for this. Thank you, but no thanks." Mm-hmm. And I had my agent relay that. They called back. They would so love to have you. They would so love to. And of course, I'm an actor. Yeah. I have my breaking point when it comes to flattery.
Yeah, of course.
To the point where I can't resist it.
You're only human.
Yes. Yeah, sure. So I said, "Well, okay." And I go down there, and that's all I know. And they bring a limo, and they bring me down there, and they said, "Okay, this was when Schwarzenegger was running for governor."
Okay.
And if you recall, you may not, the Gary Coleman,
yes,
little black small black actor.
Webster. No,
Not Webster.
Arnold
Webster.
from Different Strokes.
Arnold from Different
That's
Strokes.
racist. That's Emmanuel Lewis.
Arnold from Different Strokes.
Yes,
Arnold
Arnold from Different
Different
Strokes.
Yeah, they wanted to do the skit about Gary Coleman, and what they wanted was for me to picket the studio and say, and if you recall, Gary Coleman had a kind of a faux campaign
Yes.
Where he was
to be-
picketing. Yeah.
to be governor.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to picket the outside of the theater saying Gary Coleman can't run for governor because he's too small. And I said, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? I can't make fun of somebody that small. He says, he doesn't mind. I said, bullshit, he doesn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes along with it. He laughs. Nobody wants to be that pointed out.
Yeah.
So they were furious with me. They were furious. And I said, just send me home. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So they said, okay. And they had a script conference with Jimmy Kimmel. And they came back and said, okay, would you do it and say he stole your watch? And I said, okay. So I did it. I wasn't good. I was not good. I was tense. And it was not funny.
Yeah.
Kimmel didn't have me on the show, but after I had done it, he got on the show and said, why did we have this guy? This is a D-list actor.
What?
Yeah, this is a D-list actor, and he went off on it. He went off on it about me. And I thought it was so freaking cowardly.
Yeah.
If you feel that way, tell me to my face.
Yeah.
And I harbored a considerable resentment toward him since then. And in fact, I did a red carpet thing. Was that what I call red carpet?
Yeah.
And his station or his show was there to interview people, and I had been saving this up. And they told me that he wasn't there, but something they were going to use on the show, but I don't think they did.
Yeah.
For a reason you will very quickly understand. They asked me about how do I feel being there, and I said, well, I'd rather talk about Jimmy Kimmel, a bear with little brain, less wit, and the personality of a garbanzo bean.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
That's an incredible.
So the only reason why I regret at this juncture, and I'm an old guy now, that I wasn't more successful, so that I could be asked to come back to the Jimmy Kimmel show and tell him that in person. That's it.
Yes. I love it. That's incredible. That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
So let's jump back to Star Trek for a moment. So
All right.
you did the second and third season. The show ends, and it had been. I mean, there was a letter writing campaign to save the show, and things
Right.
like that had happened. Where there was obviously a dedicated fan base,
Right.
But it was not a huge hit at the time. It did okay. At what point did you know you were part of something special? Like at that point, after it's over, did you think it was just okay? That's it. It was a nice run. I'll move on and do other things. Like, did you have some inkling that you would have a continuing association with this show?
That the show
40,
would
50 years later?
change the world forever.
Yeah.
Well,
Which it did.
The curious thing is that when you talked about, wasn't going to say anything, but when you talked about insuring parts of your body,
Sure, yeah.
the day after Roddenberry called and said, we're through and nice working with you, I called that guy, that insurance guy,
No way.
because I knew we were coming back, and I knew that I was going to be involved, and I would be. No, this is all a makeup.
Making it all up. I love it.
So what would you have insured if
the whole essence,
the whole thing?
His whole being.
Ensure
Soup to
your
nuts.
accent.
No, the answer to your question is none of us did. None of us had any inkling. When Gene said, nice working with you, I said, well, okay, thank you. It's my nice working. What's going to happen with the rest of my life now?
Yeah.
And the next year was disastrous. I didn't have a reason to get up in the morning. The phone never rang. I had no direction. I had a wife and a baby at home, and in fact, what saved my life was the realization that I had to have a purpose. And so I got up every morning after the first 6 months, and I wrote a novel, and it gave me an objective, and I either wrote at home, or if that became noisy, I went to the library and I wrote there, and I finished it, and after working that hard, I said to myself, I've got to sell this because I worked so hard on it. And then I showed it to Harlan. I showed it to like 3 science fiction writers: George Clayton Johnson, Harlan, and another writer who actually had a play on Broadway. The other writer and George Clayton Johnson thought it was absolutely publishable. It was a good. In fact, George Clayton, he was one of the writers on Star Trek, and he also wrote for Twilight Zone. And he actually gave me the title for it. Harlan hated it. Harlan thought it was just awful. It wasn't specific. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. He just tore it apart. So I just put it in the drawer. And I put it in the drawer for 18 years.
Wow.
And then somebody asked to read it and wanted to publish it. And they published it. It sold 150 copies maybe. And then I put it away literally for another 18 years. Somebody else wanted to read it. They published it for another company. They sold another 150 copies. and my hand to God, and I don't believe in God, so it doesn't make any difference. But another publisher published it. And that sold maybe 120 copies. But it's probably holds the record for the most times published. And they were not self-published. They pay for the publishing.
Sure, yeah.
And the fewest copies sold. But that's what kept me going. And that's what saved my life, at least in my emotional, my psychological life, after Star Trek ended, because it was dead. It was dead in the water. Then they started to rerun it. And then we started to be invited to conventions. And even at that juncture, I thought, well, this is interesting. It has an afterlife in reruns, but and I should exploit that and take advantage of the opportunity to make some money making personal appearances.
Yeah.
It was when Star Wars was made.
Sure.
Then Paramount, the chief executives at Paramount, the brain trust, turned to each other and said, "Do we have anything like Star Wars so we could do that with?" And they hauled out Star Trek.
And after the original series, the animated series came out, where they brought back the entire cast except for you.
Yeah.
But you did write an episode of that show.
Yeah.
And
that was a terrible experience. I mean, the writing was difficult.
Way to go, Matt. bring up the terrible experience.
Well, yeah, I'd love to dwell on the terrible experience. I didn't know I wasn't going to be in the animated series. We were all coming back to do the animated series. I was at one of the first conventions I've ever been to in Los Angeles. Dorothy Fontana, who was the story editor on Star Trek's series and was one of the producers on the animated series, had just given a talk to 500 people, and they came pouring out of the auditorium, and one of the fans come up to me and said, "How do you feel about not being in the animated series?"
wow, that's a tough way to find out.
Oh, that's a terrible way.
That's
to find
awful.
out.
Yeah. Wow.
Terrible. Particularly as somebody as neurotic as I am. So I said, "What?" And I later that day we convened for a panel, and I said, "Gene, I didn't know I wasn't going to be on the series." He says, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, never mind." And he just
Never mind.
yeah.
Oh my God.
But at that point, I had already written the animated episode. That's true. I had written that first, and I would have traded that in a blink of the eye to have been on the series.
Was there residuals at the time? Was SAG doing stuff like that yet?
Not for the actors, I don't think there was. I mean, for the writers, there was no residuals.
No, but like for Star Trek, for the original series, was there?
Are you talking about? Yeah, and they were very, very. Leonard and Bill had a better deal, and I think DeForest did by the time the second, third year. There wasn't that much better. I mean, they were getting like $5,000 a week, which at the time wasn't
Pretty
bad.
good, yeah.
My first year I got $650 when I worked, and the second year when I was under contract, whether I did a day or a week, I got $750. So one year I made $10,000 altogether. The other year I made $11,000, and there was a finite number of rerun payments.
Yeah.
So when we went into reruns, we get 6 reruns payments, and then the SAG contract was renegotiated for everybody, for everybody who worked in television, to 10. So we got up to 10, but then it ended,
Yeah.
and we got no more. We got no more reruns.
Even though it's
It's been
to this
rerun
day still
12 billion times
still
at this
airing,
point. Yeah.
And then what happened was, and it's an interesting story. The name and likeness was a different subject. It was a different department.
Sure.
And we got we got a small amount of money for name and likeness, but they exploited the hell out of Star Trek
Yeah.
in merchandise.
Oh,
yeah. And DeForest, Nichelle, not DeForest, Jimmy, Nichelle, George, and I were on a flight to do a convention, and we were sitting in first class with an attorney who had argued before the Supreme Court, and I started talking to him, and I said, "This is our situation. Our royalty payments suck. Would you be interested in handling this for us?" And he said, "Yeah." So we sat, the five of us, and he had argued before the Supreme Court, this young man.
How lucky was that guy
Yeah,
to be on
yeah.
that flight?
And we went to Paramount, and we sat down with all their producers and their executives, and we told them that we felt that we had been shortchanged in terms of the royalties. These were not residuals; these were royalties, name and likeness. And the argument, the main principal argument, was that we created these characters. Yes, they were fictional characters, but we created them.
Yeah.
And we were, in effect, stuck with them. And that limited our marketability.
Sure.
Because
Right.
we had been known for these characters.
Truly.
And on that basis, they changed their minds, and they ended up giving us a substantial one-time royalty, which they said was one time, and you must never talk about it, never tell anybody, never tell the press. And we agreed to that. And so help me God, the next day there was a big article about how they had paid us and how much they had paid us, and Paramount had done it.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it made them look like the good guys
Yeah.
instead of bad guys.
Right. The way they painted
Yeah,
it.
I was wondering about, because I have a Star Trek game on my phone that I play all the time.
Yeah.
And some characters, their voices are included, and other characters, the voices are not. And you're one of the people where voices are not. I imagine that's the thing where they have to pay people to use clips from the show, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, they came back, and I did do several other games. But originally, it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, because John Delancey's on there. Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok, is on there. Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9. Kate Mulgrew's on there.
Which Star Trek?
Star Trek Timelines, mobile phone game.
Is this the most recent?
Yeah, it came out about a year ago.
Is this an ad for Star Trek Timelines? Because we should get paid for that.
I did one about 2 years ago. A game.
Yeah, they might
Wow.
cycle them in and out. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's probably
sometimes
also
they
like
don't
a
want them
storage
to conflict
space.
with each other, so
Yeah.
So
who
when you
knows?
started doing the movies, how did that go down? When did you find out that there were going to be movies?
Well, again, I'll try to be succinct.
No, it's fine.
Your show is 60 minutes long, or do you?
However long we
It's
decide it is.
However long.
good.
We're good.
Well, in that case,
the summer of 19.
exactly.
I was born.
The summer of 1975, everybody got a letter from Gene Roddenberry saying, "Get back in shape. We're going to make a movie. I'm losing 5 pounds. All of you do too." You know.
Oh my God, amazing.
Except I didn't get one. I didn't get a letter like this.
Wow.
And being of a paranoid disposition to begin with, I immediately assumed that I wasn't going to be in it.
Right.
And guess what? I wasn't. I called the office and I asked to speak to Gene, and he was out of the country. That's always what happens when you need to something this pressing is on your mind. But I talked to his secretary. He said, "Oh, Walter, you're being neurotic. You're being silly. Of course you're going to be in it. Everybody's going to be in it." I said, "Okay. Could you have him call me when he gets back?" He called me on a Sunday morning and said, "No, you're not." And the reason why is the story I have in mind takes place 3 years before the series. It's been 5 years since the series. And you're 9 years older than the character you played,
Yeah.
14, 17. So you'd be asked to be playing a character that you're 17 years older than.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think it would work. And I said, well, that makes sense to me. I understand that. He says, would you like to play Chekov's father? And I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they never made that movie. Paramount nixed it because it had to do with God.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too close.
They waited to Star Trek.
Pardon?
It was 5 to do the God one. That was
that one. And that one was just a bad movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But this one had to do with God. And the chairman at Paramount, here's a name I don't remember, was a devout Catholic, and he objected to that film. So that wasn't made, 1975. Then they did come back. They told us, we are making a movie. First they said it was going to be a series. Then they said, well, Star Wars came out. It was a big success. We're going to make a movie, low-budget movie. Come in for a fitting. I came in for the fitting. He said, well, you're the only one whose the uniform still fits. I said, oh, great. I went home. I was home an hour. I got a call that the movie's been postponed. So it was one, right after another. You tend to become a little cynical about the whole process,
Sure.
Then finally they said, we're going forward. We're going to make this movie. Come in. We're going to have this huge breakfast and meeting with all the media. This was, I think, late 1978. And we came in. They set up a set that looked like the bridge. We all were sitting at our positions. Hundreds of journalists and photographers were there. Bill Shatner was the host. He says, welcome, everybody. It's so good to see you. And he says, let me introduce the cast to you. Leonard Nimoy, who plays Mr. Spock. George Takei, who plays Sulu. Nichelle Nichols, who plays Uhura. Jimmy Doohan, who plays Scotty. DeForest Kelley, who plays Dr. McCoy. And Mr. Chekov.
Oh my God!
It's recorded. Somebody was recording it. I thought that was.
Oh man!
So
Wow.
how could what happened, what followed, ever be any good? Well, it turned out to be up. It was down. It was good from there on. So yeah, that was, and then we were postponed another 12 weeks. So I can't help it, man. I can't help it. It's our guy.
Oh no, it's okay.
If you hear any noise, there's the long guy outside. It's okay. We're all good.
So then we finally, to answer your question, see, and I even remembered the freaking question. We're on the set. We're shooting the first shot. Robert Wise is our director. The first shot is a panoramic shot of all of us at our stations. And now I'm at the weapons station. I'm no longer the navigator. Bill Shatner's wife is the new navigator. But they sweep the set, and we're all doing our thing. And then they say, cut, and I'm feeling nothing. Yeah. And this is after all these postponements.
Sure.
Then they bring us together, and they said, this is a shot where Captain Kirk comes out of the elevator, and Sulu, Uhura, and Chekov run over to the lift to say hello. Let's set that shot up. And they put us in position. They start to set the lights. And then I said to myself, my God, we're making the Star Trek movie. It wasn't the first shot. It was the second shot. And that's when I knew we were making the film. And where I believed it.
Yeah. And then the first movie it's okay. It's not...
It was not, it was just okay.
Because it felt like a reprise of... There was an episode of the original series that was very similar in plot where there's a probe and it wound up destroying things and all that kind of stuff. And then this was the Voyager probe.
Right.
If you haven't seen the original movie, the Voyager probe is off in deep space. It's hundreds of years from now. And it merges with alien technology and winds up killing a bunch of people while it's returning back to Earth. But then Star Trek II comes out, Wrath of Khan. That's a movie where you were nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor. That is probably considered to be the pinnacle of Star Trek. I think Wrath of Khan is the one that everybody points to as being that. If you're going to watch Star Trek, that's the best you can get.
They tried to remake it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Poorly.
Yeah. They tried,
With Benedict Cumberbatch playing a
Abram,
Sikh Indian.
J.J.
Oh
Abrams
yeah,
and
yeah,
those
yeah.
guys.
That was not such a good idea.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because Ricardo Montalban playing a Sikh Indian, I can see that they're both ethnic. But then Benedict Cumberbatch is whiter than I am playing a Sikh Indian. It just doesn't quite work. For
Well,
me.
and Ricardo was so wonderful.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you can't
He's so good.
duplicate that.
What that movie had, above and beyond all of the other films, was a viable antagonist. Was
Yeah.
somebody who
A real
who was
threat.
dimensional.
Yes.
I mean, he was evil and all of that, but you felt for him.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, he'd lost his wife.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
It was. You know. He was operating from revenge. You know, and revenge is a very human quality. And he was. He was bigger than life. Yes, indeed. But he was an equal to Captain Kirk.
Yes.
And if you don't have an antagonist who is as powerful as your protagonist, then you don't have the conflict that you need. Yeah. And we had that, and that's why it was such a dramatic film and worked so well. And of course, we had that extraordinary death scene at the end.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So
And
yes,
you had the cool beetle going in your ear.
they had the cool what?
The little beetle
The
creature.
Oh
earworm.
yeah. The
Earworm.
stunt bug. It was
Maybe
a stunt bug.
Maybe the scariest thing in Star Trek, as far as I'm concerned, was
Yeah.
seeing that thing and the way you sold it in that
Yes.
scene too. I was like, that's really happening. As a little kid, I was watching that going, I don't ever want to encounter that thing.
Yeah, well, that was great fun to do because I'd always been somebody in the audience watching that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Here I got a chance to revenge myself on the entire world.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
it.
it worked.
Yeah, so that one became
It
an
was
amazing
awesome.
movie, and then Star Trek 3 came out, which was more of a lot of comedy for DeForest Kelley, especially when he's playing Spock and himself in the same body at times. But then Star Trek 4 comes out, and that's, I think, the first one I saw in the theater as a child, and I'd seen some of the original series. That movie is when I became a Star Trek fan. Star Trek 4. You go out and you come back to Earth, and it had so many great lines of and things of you interacting with modern technology, like the scene where Scotty tries to work on the computer and he like picks up the mouse and starts talking to the mouse and things like that. Were just so well done that I think that's. I mean, for me, that's my second favorite Star Trek movie, and I think a lot of people probably agree with me on that. That those are the two, Part 2 of Wrath of Khan and A Voyage Home, Part 4.
Yeah, it's reversed for me. Star Trek 4 was my favorite. Star Trek 2 was my second favorite.
Yeah.
Star Trek 5 is interesting. First of all, I don't blame Bill Shatner for the failure of Star Trek 5. Certainly not as a director.
Yeah.
He was prepared. He was present. He was there. But Star Trek 5 and Star Trek 1 have something in common, and it led to the failure of both films. I'm less generous than you are regarding Star Trek 1. It was a snoozer as far as I was concerned. Yeah. The problem was with both films is they didn't have a last act when we went into production. They didn't have a way for the action to dovetail and to a dynamic conclusion. We shot Star Trek 1 without a last act. Star Trek 5, they had to change it because we didn't have the budget to do the effects that Bill wanted to do. So both pictures failed because the ending was anticlimactic. And so it was really for the same reason, as far as I'm concerned. In Star Trek 1, it was sort of an awe-inspiring ending with, you see V'ger and you see space, but there was no dramatic resolution.
Yeah.
And Star Trek 5, God was not the omnipresent, omnipotent being that it should have been. Star Trek 6 was a good, strong film.
Yeah.
I had a terrible time on Star Trek 6 because Nick did a good job. He wrote a good film. Again, it was difficult to be working with Bill because he was changing things all the time. But I thought that if we did a sixth film, we would each have a moment. It was our swan song. It would they would give each character a deserved moment, beyond the three principles, and that was missing. And I couldn't let that go. So I was angry every day I was on this set. It was childish on my part. It was immature, but
But it was important to you.
It was important to me.
And it was important to you for other actors.
I think it's important to you
too.
for the fans too. I mean, we wanted to see that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I see. I never felt that the character had really been developed. You know, it was always, you know, it was an expositional character. I mean, Chekov said, "Aye, Captain," and "Warp Vector 4, Captain," and occasionally he would say, "Captain, what is that out there?" And which gave Bill a chance to go into a long emotional story about his life and everything else, you know. So we were there. If we had lines beyond "Aye, Captain," it was to set up Captain Kirk and,
Sure.
and some of the other actors. So I received so much as we had all as we all had so much acclaim and reinforcement and so many accolades for work that was not there as far as I was concerned. I mean, I wanted to be appreciated, but I wanted to earn it. And it wasn't that I felt I couldn't earn it. I felt I didn't get an opportunity. So when you know, this gentleman came along who did podcasts and in upstate New York, asked me to do an episode of Star Trek as Chekov, which would be a sequel to Deadly Years.
Yes.
Deadly Years was the episode where everybody grows old except Chekov. And the story that they had in mind, and which Dorothy Fontana actually wrote, was Chekov suddenly starts to grow old in 3 days. I said, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
I've got to do it for me. I've got to do it because I've got to bring this character to life. I've been living a moribund character as far as I was concerned until this point. So I went up there and did it. I did it for me. And then when I was given the opportunity to play, and I felt better. I felt better about it. I felt, you know, there weren't going to be a lot of people who saw it, but I felt that I had dimensionalized the character to some degree. And then when I was offered to do it again in Star Trek Renegades, the gentleman who was the producer was a friend of mine, and I thought I could add to the character, even though he was like 120 years in the future.
Yeah.
The character was 143. I did it, and then they asked me to come back and do it one more time, and I said, I'll do it one more time if we can kill off Chekov. And that was the intention. Well, as you know by now, CBS obtained the rights and the licensing to Star Trek. Yeah. And we were not permitted
to quashed all the fan films like that had come out. Yeah.
We were not permitted to go forward using any Star Trek references. So, didn't stop us from making the movie.
Yeah.
We just Chekov was suddenly Admiral.
Yes.
Yeah.
We changed the design of the ships. We changed the design of the costumes. We made the movie. It's called Renegade's Requiem. And it's
got Tim Russ in it.
Tim Russ directed
it? Okay.
He directed it as he did the one preceding it.
Love Tim Russ.
Yeah, he's a good guy, good director. He played Spock, the Vulcan, very well. We had a good cast. We had a very strong cast in this last one. It's going to be out in about a month.
Awesome.
It's going to be available, and I don't think we're going to be under the heel of CBS because we have eliminated all the Star Trek references. So it can be released in more ways than simply on the internet.
Terrific.
But I don't know how it will be. But it's one that I think for no other reason than this moment, I'm glad to have done this because I'd like to make the public aware that we have made this film, and I think it's a pretty good film.
Awesome.
And
I look forward to seeing it. Renegade's Requiem.
What are the names of the podcast and the film that you did the Chekov reprisals in?
Oh, we got those.
Oh, we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I
Yeah.
don't
I
remember.
want to
no,
make
Star
sure.
Trek-
I just want to make sure people can access it,
No.
So this one is no longer Star Trek.
Yeah, it's-
Renegades.
Yeah, it's called Renegade.
Renegade's Requiem.
Yeah, Renegades of the Requiem.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you'll recognize all of the actors because they're all from the different
Yes.
Star Trek.
Oh yeah, Nichelle Nichols is in it as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Michelle is, and then the
And I've
Terry.
Yeah, Terry Farrell.
Farrell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she makes her first
Jadzia
appearance in
Dax,
one of
yeah.
these.
I've heard interviews with George, and he's talked about how it was very important to him to have the character Sulu advance through the ranks in Starfleet. Like he wanted to come back as a captain in a future movie. He didn't want to come back just as a guy working on the ship, and that's sort of why in later movies he had his own ship and they came in and saved the day.
Right.
Was that important to you for Chekov to have him move up those ranks? Like, did you really care about the character Chekov and you wanted Chekov to do well, not just Walter Koenig to do well?
Well, you're talking from two totally different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's part of George's family culture. You know, respect, and if you advance through the ranks, it indicates a certain respect for you and the character that you're playing. So I think he felt that it's important that the character grows.
Yeah.
To me, you could have made Star Trek 6 and have broken me to an ensign, thrown me in the brig, and given me a 4-minute soliloquy, and I would have been in love.
Yeah,
I
no,
would've
it's about for you more. It's about extending
The actor.
the character of and as an actor being able to grow with the character.
As the character. That's the only thing that was important to me.
Yeah, that
I
makes a
mean,
lot of sense.
Chekov had a line in Star Trek 4 where he's coming out of a coma or something, and he says Chekov Admiral, which everybody loved. You know, I mean, I thought it was a funny line, but
Yeah.
it was not important to me.
Yeah.
It's not important to me.
Have you gone back, like in later years? Have you gone back to do theater again? To do live theater? Do you still enjoy doing any of that? Or not
Well,
really?
I did go back. In fact, Mark Leonard, who played Spock's father, was a wonderful actor. Yeah. Tremendous authority. We did several plays together. We did a couple of one-acts that we toured briefly on the West Coast, but we also did a play called The Boys in Autumn. Should we stop and...
No, keep going, please.
We did a play called The Boys in Autumn about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn coming together, having a reunion 40 years after the fact.
Wow.
And they both have a secret that they are reluctant to divulge, a secret in their lives. And it was two-character play. We ran it out here in a small theater in the valley, and we were extended. And then we took it on the road and did it. We did it at conventions, and we did it at a 1,500-seat theater in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and we did it at a college in Louisiana, and it was a terrific experience. In fact, before you leave, I'll show you the LA Times review, which was quite wonderful. So we did that together. I did, Richard Hatch is? Not Richard Hatch, Richard Hurd. Richard Hurd, who was in T.J. Hooker, he played the captain.
Okay.
And he was also in several Star Trek incarnations in the series. He and I did a play. Now I'm going to go blank here, but it was the two-character, one-act. It was great. We did that at conventions, and we did it in L.A. So I've done that, and I've also directed theater. So I directed a play called Fastest Clock in the Universe, which had its Los Angeles premiere in our production.
I love it. Well, before we wrap up, we have to talk about the next film that's coming out, and this one is being released April 11th of this year. And let me tell you the plot. You ready for the plot?
I'm ready.
I'm going to do it in like movie
you
voice.
guys.
This movie voice. Ready? In a madcap future era, the world's greatest secret agent struggles to rescue his young son from the clutches of an infamous former mentor. Neil Stryker and the Tyrant of Time. That was we should get that filmed because that's hysterical.
Those were not from our soundboard, by the way.
Yes.
Those sound effects.
That's all Walter. What a fun, cool looking movie too, with great people, David Ogden Stiers and lots of really fun people. And I heard you had a very good time with Nick Costa, the writer.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
it was absolutely it was. They shot it in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
I went up there to shoot. It was one day. What I found so fascinating with these guys, all in their mid 30s, excuse me, the mid 30s, and they always wanted to be filmmakers. They always wanted to make movies, particularly Nick. And Nick had $10,000, and he felt he could make a movie. So Nick discovered that the $10,000 wouldn't take him very far. So he decided to pick another profession, and he became an attorney. He went to law school. He's an immigration lawyer, for which I commend him. But that's his day job. You know, he saved money from being an attorney to make a film, and he made Neil Stryker. And they were all very they built on a soundstage, which I think they improvised, and I'm not sure it was a real soundstage. They built an entire forest out of paper mache.
Wow.
I mean, the trees and the leaves. It was amazing. Now, I was only in the last 10 minutes of the film. And I haven't actually seen the whole film. I have seen the part that I'm in, and it's extremely funny. Not because of me, but because in addition to whatever else they go through in the film, they end up in this enchanted or magical valley. And when you pass a certain point, everything changes, and you go through a portal of some kind. And the inhabitants are puppets, are really evil-looking puppets.
Oh yeah, they're like Jim Henson-looking creatures.
Yeah, I mean,
they look awesome.
Yeah, and you know, there's you don't see the hands that are operating them, and there's a young Russian technician as part of their crew, young guy in his 20s, and they go through this portal, and he has to go to the bathroom, and he goes behind a tree to pee, and when he comes out, it's me. So as an old Russian guy, I do my whole part with the Russian accent, but I'm supposed to be this guy who's aged like 60 years, you know. But it was great fun, and we have a huge battle with the puppets, and the effects are great, and if the whole movie is as much fun as the part that I participated in, I think it'll be absolutely something for people to go to. I know it's done extremely well in festivals. One festival they won Best Actor, another festival they won Best Picture, Best Screenplay. So I recommend everybody to take to look it up when it comes out. It's coming out in April, right?
Well,
great.
yeah, and Rob Taylor, who's the director on it,
Director and lead actor.
God, so cool. Such a fun, interesting guy. And I'm a big fan of Nick Costa because Nick did he's done some really great stuff. He wrote, he worked. I think he acted in and did a little work on. Oh, he acted in a movie called My First Mister, which was kind of fun and a cool movie. But yeah, I'm a big fan of passion projects, and you can tell this has a lot of passion. They put a lot of their own time and resources into making something really cool, and I can't wait. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one last Star Trek question?
Yeah,
before we wrap up?
please. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Favorite episode of the series?
Yes.
Well, that would be. Well, I have two. One which I was not in, and one in which I was. I think the best episode of all time was City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, that was so touching, and I mean, you go to a movie theater, the screen envelops you. You're watching television. There's always the physical distance, and the fact that you're bigger than it keeps the film at arm's length. The story at arm's length. You never get quite as involved and as engrossed by what you're seeing as you would in a theater where the actors are live or in a movie theater. But this story was so touching and so compassionate and so well done that's my favorite. Spectre of the Gun is my favorite episode that I was in because I had a lot to do. I got the girl. I got killed. Oh, by the way, that was a moment of illogic, and that I had brought to the production's attention, because the story, if you recall, it's all an illusion. We're on this planet, and everything that happens is illusion. And as soon as we know that it's an illusion, it can't affect us.
Yeah.
But Chekov is killed before we know that it's an illusion. So he could not have come back to life. And why I felt compelled to tell the story editor that, because I thought I was writing my own epitaph by doing that. But I did. I said, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He should have died. And his reaction was, yeah, we thought about it. Nah, fuck it.
Wow. Amazing.
Some of the best stuff comes out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So it's not Space Hippies. That's not your favorite.
Not Space Hippies.
I forget the name of that episode, the one with the Space Hippies.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Yeah,
because
no.
you know why it wasn't? It wasn't not only because, when is Herbert a dirty word?
Yes.
My God.
If you haven't seen that, you need to go look that one up, because it's the most ridiculous episode of that series. I think that's the campiest thing I've ever seen.
Well, and the fact, from my point of view, they just changed the character.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he was this uptight, anally retentive character
Made no sense.
who was quoting the Federation on what you should and what you shouldn't do. He was not in sympathy with the hippies. He should have been in. And he said, he should have said, that's a great idea. That's the way I felt.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're kind of coming to the end of the show. Is there a way, if our fans want to reach out to you or find you on in the internet, do you have any sort of like a website? Do you have anything like that people can
Twitter or?
Yeah, I do. I have fan mail here that goes back to the 2014.
He doesn't need our fans to reach out to him at this point.
I will send. The stipulation is I'll accept fan mail if you send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and a photograph, and I will autograph it and send it back.
Well, do you still do autograph signings at conventions?
I do. I do personal appearances.
When do you have any that are coming up?
I have one in Denver next month in April.
Awesome.
And then I have a big one. That's pretty big now. The Denver one. Yeah. I have London. I have New Zealand. Last year I did 16.
Wow.
Because it was the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, of course.
So I was all over the place, and I love being there. I love being at conventions. I love being around the fans. I really do. I mean, part of an actor's makeup is the love,
Of course.
And they're a captive audience, particularly if it's a Star Trek convention. I mean, I've been to anime conventions where they don't know who the hell I am, But the Star Trek conventions in particular, they're extremely supportive and reinforcing.
And let me just say to my friends in Denver, where the official Star Trek fan club originated, treat him like royalty when he's there. Come say hi to him. Yeah. Have fun. Get his autograph. He's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, getting a chance to come to your house and sit down with you and getting to talk about your career and your life and see all the things that you've collected, because me and Mike are both like huge toy collectors and sculpture collectors and stuff like this, so it's a huge treat for us. And Matt, when I told him, when you called the other day, we were on the way to our show to do our live show, and he almost had a car accident. He was so excited because I put you on speakerphone for a second because he was in the car with me, and he was like, he was just like, I can't believe it's happening. And we're huge fans of you, and I can't thank you enough for letting us come into your home and sit down with you and chat about everything. And I hope that we get to do it again sometime soon.
Well, that would be terrific, and I'm particularly pleased that you guys did a session with Jimmy Pardo, my son-in-law.
Oh, Jimmy Pardo!
Yeah, he's done our live show.
He performed on our live show,
Great comic.
And we absolutely love Jimmy Pardo. He's an amazing comedian.
His wife, my daughter Danielle, is she started with stand-up, And she writes all the time. She's a freelance writer, but she writes she's written for Nickelodeon. She's written for Disney. She writes speeches for Guild Awards. She's terrific talent, and you should probably have her on sometime too.
Oh, we would love that.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For
Danielle
sure.
Koenig.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
All right, Matt, where can people find you on the internet if they want to find you?
You can find everything about me at funnymatt.com, or if you think that I missed the question I should have asked Walter, or I asked something I shouldn't have said, let me know at mattwalkersucks.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they will.
Yes.
Mike?
I am at Mike Black Attack on all social media.
I'm at Stephen Glickman, Stephen Glickman on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Nighttime Show podcast, leave us comments, and share with your friends. We love you, buddy. This was incredible, Walter. Thank you so much.
Absolutely great fun for me.
Yeah, just a total and complete blast. And don't forget to check out Neil Stryker and the Tyrant of Time.